Hello and welcome to Postcolonial Space. I'm Masood Raja, and this is another one of my videos in which I try to answer research questions that people have posed on my channel. And if you are interested in it, please watch the video in the description where I invite your questions and post your question there, and I'll either answer it in the comments, or if the question requires a slightly detailed reply, I'll probably record a video and answer it. So this is in reply to a question that was posed to me by a subscriber from New Zealand. And the question was, this is for an undergraduate paper, and the question was, I was trying to write a paper that claims that some of the World Bank policies are colonial and imperial, and how to go about that. Now, my answer would be specific to this question, but it can be generalized to any power dynamic where one institution, global or local, is trying to do something in a native community. So first of all, I would recommend that you should read this one essay on my website, postcolonial.net, that I will post the link below, by Anne McClintock. It's in a totally different context where she's discussing the rise of postcolonialism, but within that she gives examples of the mistakes that the World Bank made in their developmental projects all over the developing world. And the reason is because of their imperial thinking, because they did not involve the native people's input, and they took their Eurocentric view of development there and did things or forced the local governments to do things that now in a hindsight we know that were absolutely terrible for the environment. And that happened because World Bank had its own idea of what constitutes development and maybe thought that they knew better than the natives. So please read that article. Then in one of the early chapters of her book, Other Asias, Gayatri Spivak uses this imperial example of the World Bank actually going into Bangladesh and taking a project which was environmentally considered sound by redoing something with the river flows and the estuaries, and how it destroyed the local crop cycles. So please read that chapter, and that will give you a nuanced understanding of how this kind of imperial thinking doesn't only just destroy the environment, but also endangers so many livelihoods. And that's another example of a Eurocentric institution with the power to shape not just policies, but actual material conditions in the world. Then I would also suggest that do some research in the World Bank projects in the developing world in the last 30 or 40 years, especially, let's say, in Latin America and in the Amazon. And how did the World Bank and their developmental teams forced so many nations to move to cash crops and to deforest their forests in order to make them into profit-earning enterprises, and how in the long run that has absolutely damaged the environment and economies of those countries. But also important to note is that in all these processes, what was taken as a fact was that the World Bank has the technical expertise and knows it better how to do. And in most of the cases, local governments and the native people were never really involved in the decision making. So if you take just these few examples and do some research, then your argument could be that not only is it that the European nations were once imperial and colonial, but that the institutions that come out of the Second World War, what we call the Bretton Woods institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, because of their structure and the power that they hold, are in themselves imperial institutions. And then you can go and look at the concrete examples. But if that is your argument, then in your paper you can start with what you understand as to what imperialism is, And then how do these institutions become imperialistic? Because they don't involve the native people in their decision making, because they think that what they know is the most important thing to know, and what their policies are the best policies for wide-ranging nations without taking into account their local particularities, right? All of these are imperial actions. And then you can take this knowledge and apply it to a single culture. You can take the same knowledge and apply it to not just the World Bank, but also IMF, right? Or any NGOs that go into the developing world with this idea that they are the ones who know it better, and they're the ones who can save the environment, and never involve the native populations, governments, into planning of their projects. All of these are imperial moves, right? So overall, anytime you want to write a paper using post-colonial theory, trying to suggest that a global institution or a global cultural association or even a branch of United Nations is imperialistic, you will have to go to the statistics, of course, but you will also have to prove that they are imperialistic because they believe that their way is the right way, and there is no negotiating with them a different way of doing it, and that in most of the cases, the will and the consent of the local populations is never really sought. And even if it is sought, it is dismissed. So whenever you can make such an argument, you are kind of rereading a new political situation, but with the same tools of imperialism and colonialism, right? Now, if you want to call it colonialism, then there will have to be some capture of the local assets by a global corporation or a global organization, because they will have to physically take over or occupy a certain resource or a certain territory. If they don't do that directly, then you can trace the imperialistic tendencies and imperialistic mindset that the officials of these organizations might bring to these nations. So to sum up, to answer your particular question from New Zealand, these are some of my ideas. Now you can use any of my videos here on these concepts, imperialism, colonialism, neo-imperialism, and then go and read the texts that I cite so that you actually have a text that you can cite. Then take your concepts, explain them in the beginning of your paper after you put what is it that you're trying to analyze, and you'll have to prove that World Bank is an imperialistic institution. Use the text that you read, any post-colonial scholar, and their argument will be useful to you. Even Anne McClintock's account, it is slightly dated, of destructive policies of the World Bank could be your beginning point. And then from there, then you can focus on your specific topic. Now, for a general audience, if you didn't pose this question, but you are dealing with thinking about a thesis or a paper that uses imperialism or any such other tropes or concepts, you can follow the same pattern. Learn the concept, discuss it, discuss the institution. How do you prove World Bank is an imperial institution? Look at its structure. Look at how governments vote to make policies. Can the developing countries have a voice in its running? If not, and if it does not take into account the local constituencies and their problems, then it is sort of an imperialistic institution. And then you apply it to a literary text or to a real life situation. So I hope this answers your particular question, but also this is helpful to anyone who has come to this video just following a search. And I hope this is useful to you. I will try to add some resources in the description so that you can further explore this topic. And as always, please follow the link to my earlier video where I had announced this project of trying to answer your questions in the comments or through videos. And if you have a question related to my area of expertise, which is post-colonial studies and literary theory, please post your question there and I'll either answer it through the comments, and if I feel the need and if I have time, I will actually record a video just like this one, and answer your questions. That is all. Thank you so much for your time and for your support to my channel. And if you have a few extra moments, please do subscribe to the channel. And I would love to have you as a, regular participant in our conversations. That is all. Thank you so much. And as always, peace and love.